different climates, cultural requirements, all and different periods, architectural styles. So Jodhpur quite distinctly looks different from Guwahati, which looks different from Thiruvananthapuram or Chennai or Delhi, and so on and so forth. As I said, local materials, local culture, the requirement of the city, various things guided how a city looked and felt. Then, since independence, unfortunately, what happened is that, as I told you, we came up with this great fascist idea that all cities need to have this particular framework of building. And so net result of this is it got incorporated into our building codes. So we have now, since independence, with notable exceptions, basically built the same kind of repeated ugliness across the country. The new neighborhoods built, well, by and large, if it's in Delhi or in Chennai, you from a photograph you wouldn't be able to tell. Go back and look at photographs from 100 years ago. You only have to look at them and you would have a rough idea of where in the country those cities are. I mean, South Indian cities quite distinctly look different from cities in Punjab and so on. But that is no longer the case. You have these so-called layouts, and they all have this kind of box-looking CPWD architecture that got spread everywhere with this basic cement RCC buildings built with this brutalist kind of architecture. And somehow we managed to convince ourselves that this architecture looked beautiful. So people, I know there are some people here from architecture schools, you are responsible for this. You send people off to see the secretariat in Chandigarh, which in my view is perhaps the ugliest building ever built, and claim that this is a good looking building. Or in fact, you should go to Delhi and see SPA, which is India's top architecture school. It literally has the second ugliest building ever built. And right next to that is the Town Planning Institute, which is the third most ugly building ever built. And so, these should be preserved for posterity. And so, these got codified into our system. So, till very recently, till between 1950 to 2020, we essentially built one decent building in the entire country, which is the Vidhan Saudha building in Bangalore. And the guy who built it got into major trouble with the authorities for having built something beautiful. You can Google it up. Other than that, we built uniform ugliness across the country, aided and abetted by, of course, the architecture schools, not to mention the government, which codified all of these into rules and regulations. In the last 5 years, with a lot of arguing, we have begun to unwind this. So first of all, we have begun for the first time to build, post-independence, some better looking buildings. So you are seeing some little improvements. I wouldn't say we have broken out of the brutalist mindset fully, but still a new parliament has been built, new some grander architecture is being built. You will now see slightly different looking buildings being built, even in urban landscapes. So for example, new buildings being built in Mumbai, you'll see all kinds of experiments happening there. The airport buildings are interesting now. Some new architecture is being attempted in the railway stations and metro stations and so on. Meanwhile, the codes themselves are being loosened. So a fair amount of, and I'm finally, I think, managing to get through into people's the idea of form-based codes and about aesthetics and so on. Been a struggle, but this is beginning to finally make a dent. But it is a struggle, and particularly against the sort of the mindsets of our architectural world.
It's music to hear this. I think India probably had one of the finest architecture globally. You could go to any cities, and what we visit today are the history of those cities. Almost every city.
In fact, until very recently, if you had attempted to build a Taj Mahal or Brihadeshwara temple again, the BIS rules would have stopped you from doing it.
So I think if we can bring like a renaissance through maybe the railway stations.